my education at V-School to jump into some oh, thanks for whoever's recording. That's helpful. I almost forgot. To jump into some projects for some of kind of our partner companies. Our partner company called Verisage, which works on like real dev projects. And so I did that for a while and then decided I just wanted to come back to V-School to make the education better, improve our curriculum, switch our offering around to like a new technology stack and a new language, and kind of ran with it from there. So I've been with the team ever since, have had a chance to work on, like continue working on other dev projects. But one of my true passions is just helping students understand something that's difficult in the easiest way possible. And right now we have such an awesome team of instructors, many of which are on the call right now and that you'll get the chance to meet them, that all have the same thing in mind. They love helping students. They love seeing the light bulb turn on. And so why don't we go through the list, and maybe I'll just read names so there's no confusion about who's next. But many of you, will start with some familiar faces. Grant, if you want to start, and then maybe we'll do Debbie next.
Make sure my mute's off there. Hey everybody, I'm Grant. Should know everybody. If I don't, then we're definitely messed up somewhere. But I've been with V-School now for student and staff for about 1.5 years. And yeah, I'm just here to onboard everybody. Happy to help where I can. And if, as always, if you guys need help, just reach out and let me know.
You can tell Grant has specifically decorated his background to tell you what he's most interested in.
I do not like skiing.
I don't believe you. Debbie, you want to do another quick introduction, even though I'm pretty sure you know everyone better than anybody else here?
Yeah, I mean, we've all talked. I'm the director of admissions. I've been with V-School actually since October, but I've been in higher education for a long time now. It's nice to actually put faces to all of these names, though. I'm excited since we've mostly only talked over phone and text. So it's really neat to see you guys in your homes and see your faces this morning.
Thanks, Deb. Lainey, do you want to go next and introduce yourself? And then Mo, you're on the call. If you could go after Lainey.
Hey, good morning, everybody. So I'm Lainey Kawaguchi. I oversee all of the outcomes. So that's helping you guys get prepared for that job and the job search and getting all the pieces like LinkedIn, cover letter, reviewing portfolios, and then following, the skills building. I'll actually be meeting with you guys kind of weekly by weekly and checking in to make sure that you guys are, feeling good and really being your cheerleader and here to provide support and also to help you kind of figure out we're cracking the code of, what's successful in the job search, what's going well, what's not going well, if you need practice. So a little bit of my background. I came from digital marketing, 7+ years. I graduated in marketing originally, and then I had lost my job at the time for a huge mass reduction in force, didn't know what I was going to do. I really always have been interested in coding and wanted to sharpen that saw, but I've always managed and trained teams and helped people in hiring. So I went to V-School myself, so I'm an alum, and I feel your pain, and I know every step of the way. And then I was very fortunate. I did an internship at Adobe, and then I coded for about 1 year, and I realized I like to code, but I miss people. I'm a people. So this Zoom call is awesome because I get to see faces finally from my house. And I got back and asked back to V-School to run the outcomes program, and I've been here since and love helping everybody. Reach out whenever you need, and even if you just want to say hi, usually online. So I'm so excited to meet and work with everybody.
Cool. Thanks, Lainey. Mo, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Mo Reeder. I'm one of the co-founders of V-School, and I've been in education for my entire career, so maybe 15 years now, starting first with UCLA and running their extension programs, and then General Assembly in San Francisco. So I ran a coding boot camp in San Francisco, came to Utah as an owner of Dev Mountain when they were acquired. Around that same time, I met Michael Zaro on a boat somewhere in San Antonio, Texas, and we were kind of working for rival boot camps at the time, but we really hit it off, and we said, when the time is right, we'd really like to do something together. And so we've been working together for a while now, and we love doing what we do. This space is super interesting, as many of you already know, and if you don't, you'll find out soon. It's really an amazing opportunity to be working for a company or going to school at V School where everything is directly aligned and connected to industry, right? So, we behind the scenes, we obviously cheer for, the universities. Like, there's lots of good schools out there, but no one, as far as I'm concerned, I haven't seen anyone really as aligned with the current jobs and what's currently happening, quite like V School. So from outcomes and Laney's team to Bob and Logan on the education side, it's directly connected with a job, and you don't technically graduate from V School until you're employed. And I think that's also really an amazing thing. I think it's quite silly to assume that folks all learn the same way and in the same manner and in the same time. Some people take a certain amount of time, others take a certain amount of time. It's like everybody is different, everybody's unique. And that's really why I think V School is so exceptional, because every single person has their own way of learning. And Bob and team will, I know, fight for each one of you. Every single person is welcome here. We know that you could have gone to a lot of different schools, a lot of different boot camps out there. There's lots of options, and we're super excited and thankful that you chose us. And looking forward to meeting everyone. My day-to-day, I kind of focus on, I work directly with Matt on the marketing side, and then also focus a lot of my time on business development, and then also the media side of the house, also building community and culture. So I think that we'll probably interact most often in that culture space. So there's lots of different events and things, and we've transitioned our culture to be more digital. And so lots of great events, lots of great webinars and opportunities to build culture and community coming your way. So I'll be slacking everyone soon and kind of encouraging people to join the meetup groups, to follow the social media channels where you can find a wide variety of ways to connect with each other, also just to have a really good time, and then also to assist you in the job search afterwards. It is all about your education, and it's also about who you know, and not necessarily just like who you know, but who you know and who they know. It's usually one or two steps to find that perfect employer. And so meeting lots of people is important, and meeting the right types of people are important. So we will work very hard to make sure that you're connected in a great way with this community. Thanks.
Thanks, Mo. Looks like we have maybe Nate and then Eric, two of the instructors.
Hey everybody, Nate Jensen here. I've been working for, or with V School here for about a little over 2 years as one of their JavaScript instructors. So I'll be a resource to all of you here, one-on-ones, lessons. You'll see me all the time in and out of the Zoom channels. More recently, I've been working with our Module 7, which is after you acquire skills throughout the course, we help you build a portfolio, working on real-life projects. And so I've been a little bit more managing that lately, stepping out of the classroom a bit, but you'll still see me at least on a weekly basis. And always feel free to reach out. Again, I'm a resource here for you. Yeah, it's nice to see you all this morning.
Thanks, Nate. Eric?
Eric Jones. I've been with V School for 5 years, and then like Bob, came from an industry I didn't like, and then worked for V School's sister company before becoming an instructor. And yeah, I'll be your main instructor for the first couple of modules. So we'll be interacting daily.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. And we'll get into modules and kind of that setup and everything soon. So so it looks like that's everybody from the V School side. I figure I'm just looking at the participants panel. If you like click participants on the bottom. And I think it's alphabetical, so I'm probably just going to go through alphabetically. And the students just tell us a little bit about yourself, whatever I guess whatever comes to mind. I won't make you do like, you know, your weirdest experience or anything like that. But a little bit about yourself, why you know chose V-School, or how you came into V-School, and what your goals are, I guess. Looks like we have Amber first, so go ahead. Make sure you I guess you're unmuted. So yeah, go ahead.
Hello, my name's Amber. I live in Las Vegas. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. I was stationed out here in Vegas. That's why I'm here, and I decided to stay. And I was gonna go to a coding boot camp here, but one of the instructors named Mario told me about V-School, and he's like, I think you should go there because one, they accept the GI Bill, and that's his alumni. He thinks that V-School is a better fit for me. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And so far, so good. I like it.
That's awesome. Is that Mario Mitchell?
Yeah.
Mario's awesome. Cool.
He is awesome.
Great to meet you, Amber.
Welcome.
Adine, am I saying that right? Is that how it goes?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Yeah,
Awesome.
go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I'm not on camera. I'm not presentable right now, but next time.
Okay.
My name's Adine, and I'm from Vegas, and I was in the Air Force for 11 years. And I've been in the technical field levels 1, 2, 3 for a minute now. So I got kind of tired of that, and I started looking into coding. I've been teaching myself a little bit here and there, and I was doing my research on how to use like Amber said, how to use the GI Bill. So I found you guys, kept doing some research. I'm like, okay, cool. So I just decided to go for it.
That's awesome. It's a big leap. Good job.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome.
Alexandria.
Hi, my name is Alexandria. I decided a couple years ago I wanted to start coding. I was looking at a couple different schools locally, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to start with, but a couple things came up circumstantially to where I couldn't do it, and then essentially this quarantine created the perfect storm of events for me to actually be able to do this. Yeah, that's kind of it.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Looks like we may have Ben Long next.
Hey guys, what's up? I'm Ben. I'm from Chicago. I've only been here for about 6 months. I've been traveling around the world for about 4 years now, working in the bar industry and scuba diving instructor. This is kind of why I'm in the coding boot camp. I'm going to use my GI Bill to be able to continue to work remotely and keep traveling. Super excited about V-School. And yeah, I'm just excited to get going and all that jazz. And then of course, just as a little fun joke, anybody watch Tiger King?
Absolutely.
Did Carol Baskins kill her husband?
Guilty.
Don't give anything away. I haven't seen it.
Oh, Bob.
We'll,
Get sucked
Bob.
into.
yeah. We'll have to organize like a big scuba trip after everything. I love scuba, and it's been too long, so Ben, you'll have to help us out.
Definitely.
Brittany, you're up.
Good morning. It's good to see people. Oh my gosh. So I just left a job managing a biochem lab, and it was a nightmare. So I met Mo through a mutual friend, and I was actually looking through coding boot camps, and I loved it. So here I am, and it turns out that being quarantined is kind of a good time to be coding. So, and I started my second degree in computer science because of my heinous last job. I couldn't keep going this semester, so this is a good way to like kind of leap into the industry. I felt so I just keep chugging along, but I love coding so far.
Awesome. Welcome. Maybe I think it's Camilla next.
Hello, my name is Camilla. I live in Salt Lake City, in downtown, so I think I'm close to
the old campus, or I don't know if it's still open or not. I attended a coding boot camp in 2018, and it was just a front end boot camp, and I wasn't really satisfied with the outcome, and I didn't feel like I had support, or it was like aligned very well with industry standards. So I took a break from coding, and now I'm back here. A friend graduated from B school, and they kind of introduced me to it, and I researched, and yeah.
Awesome. Who's your friend that graduated from B school?
Tate.
Oh, awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. It keeps like reorganizing people as they talk. So Danny, I think you're next.
What's up, everybody? I'm Danny. I'm based here in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So a little ways from Salt Lake. I'm a content producer, so I do a lot of video production and photography currently. I just always had a really big interest in coding, and sort of done a lot of self-taught, kind of self-motivated stuff, but came across V-School via your courses, Bob, on Scrimba, and yeah, just really enjoyed those, and yeah, kind of excited to try to transition my career and kind of open up some opportunities for remote work, so I can stay here in the mountains ideally, and yeah, super excited.
Sweet, a convert from Scrimba. I love it. All right. Thanks, Danny. Nafez, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I hope you're all safe and sound wherever you are with the coronavirus. My name is Nafez Alian. I come from a long background in education, higher education. I was planning to move back from Dubai, where I used to live for the last 10 years, back to the US, and I decided that probably I need to shift gear, and I was long interested in coding. I've met V-School 4 or 5 years ago, probably through some charity work that we joined together, and I contacted them so I could start that as a starting point in the US as I came back. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nafez. Nafez, yeah, like he said, he's had connections with V-School in the past. Eric Jones and I had a chance to go out to Lebanon in 2016 and teach kind of basically a nonprofit school there how to get started in full stack web development. And Nafez treated us to one of the best meals I've ever had in my life. It was amazing. Lebanese food is awesome. So Norbert, I think you're next.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Norbert. My background is military intelligence. I was a military intelligence up until 2018 when I ended my enlistment. I got out and I didn't want to do intel outside because the closest thing is law enforcement, and started studying finance, where on the fall 2019 semester, I was offered a free front-end programming course, which I really enjoyed, and I decided to enroll in Punch Code, where I met Mario Mitchell, who is the reason why I'm here. And I am wrapping up Punch Code and starting here to just keep getting better at coding, because it's something I really enjoy, and I really would like to at some point work remotely and be able to, travel around the world and surf different areas. That's like my biggest hobby, and something I really miss being here in Vegas.
You say surfing?
Let me fix it and say bodyboarding, but yeah, I love the beach. I love riding waves.
Cool.
Nice. Eric, are you a surfer?
Well, you can surf lunch counter wave, yeah, and I surf.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in Wyoming. There's like a
Of
river.
course, you go surfing where you
I've
usually
seen
go
that. That's
kayaking.
awesome.
Sweet. Awesome. Thanks, Norbert. Seth, last but not least.
Hey everyone. So long story short, graduated from a university about 2 years ago in business administration, and then worked in banking. I worked at Goldman Sachs in Salt Lake City and just hated it. So really have been looking for something else to do. And I have a friend that went to B-School not too long ago, so she recommended to check it out. So yeah, that's where I'm at now, and I'm excited to learn.
Awesome. Thanks, Seth. Who's your friend?
Annie Turner.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, Annie's great. All right. That's everybody on the call. Thanks so much, everybody, for introducing yourself. I know it's especially probably new for those of you that aren't used to teleconferencing, but it's probably nerve-wracking to know that you're next and you got to speak and unmute yourself and be on show. So I know that can be difficult. Fortunately, you're going to get a chance to get used to it. So we're an all online school now, I guess by requirement. We're finding out that it's actually making a lot of sense, and I think that we maybe had some perfect 2020 vision, because we basically have set up our education model to be perfect for online learning anyway. So we're very fortunate that we kind of hustled this last year in 2019 to get ready for that, because now it's exactly what we needed. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I have a little orientation deck that we use. Now, keep in mind this, I haven't looked through absolutely everything to make sure that any references to like a campus are gone, but let's go back here, musical orientation. We basically did a meet the team. Can everyone see my screen right now?
I can.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I can.
Awesome. You've had a chance to meet many people. One you haven't yet met is Jimena. Jimena does a lot of operations. You might get a chance to meet with her online, or at least talk with her on Slack. Michael Zaro is also one of the co-founders. We have Mo on the call. Michael Zaro is another co-founder of V-School, co-founder and CEO. He's great. You'll be meeting with him I think it's Friday. We do like a student town hall where all the students and Zaro and some of the staff join, basically to get feedback, to talk about company updates, to be as transparent as possible, and help us make changes, any changes that you see as necessary. Tony is part of admissions and business development. He works with Debbie on admissions, and also kind of works on, we have some kind of some business, I guess, development stuff that's happening, like working with different universities and getting our curriculum out there and helping people learn to code, not just inside of the bootcamp space, but everywhere possible. Marcus is likely on the other call with all of our current students right now. So, so you'll get a chance to work with him. He's one of the instructors. Same with Sam. Cody is over experience design. So you may not get a whole lot of interfacing with Cody, but he's awesome. And I hope you do, because he's super fun. We are going to be working on figuring out good ways to have some kind of cross-pollination between your team and the dev side and the design side. So we'll get a chance to do that. I'm going to go through some of these slides just to keep everybody, or get everybody kind of onboarded and understanding like how things are going to work. And we like to start with communication. Because you won't be here, like we don't have a campus that you're coming to live in person, the main forms of communication are going to be Slack and Zoom. Slack, I'm really kind of proud of you all that you made it to this call without me necessarily having to like email and call you or anything. Seems like you're all pretty on the ball when it comes to being here in Slack. So leave Slack open on your computer. Make sure you download the native application for your computer instead of using it from a browser, because it does notifications in just much better. And get it on your phone too. basically all of the staff here, like we have it on our computer open all the time. We have it on our phone. We're fairly accessible over Slack. You know, it's probably the best way to get a hold of us. If you're not super familiar with how Slack works, you'll figure it out pretty quickly. Some kind of pointers are look, I can do this. Some pointers are that if you use @channel, you will notify everybody in that channel. So for example, if you were to do @channel in the general channel, which I don't recommend, about 500 or 600 people would get your message and like get a ding on their phone or their computer. We tend to try and steer clear of that just because the general channel includes current and all former students. But if you do have a message that you want everybody, say in the dev students channel, which I'm gonna add you all to if you haven't yet been, then it'll notify everybody. You can also do and then the person's username. So if you said @Bob and like selected my name from the little pop-up list, it would notify me, but still make the message readable to everybody else. So that can be useful sometimes too. And then of course, if you just want a private message, you can just start a private message with somebody. And then Zoom, I don't have a thing for Zoom, but Zoom, we will have a student call running, and we're working through exactly how we want this to work. But as of now, what we've decided is we're going to have a call running that you'll join after this, and it will have all of the students who are online at that time. And there will be, Zoom has a feature called a breakout room, which essentially allows you to sit in like another space where it's like having multiple calls going at the same time. We have a breakout room that's essentially like a quiet room. So everybody's muted. You can jump in there and you won't like unmute and talk, but if you have questions, you just simply jump back to the general channel. I'm gonna put together a little training on that soon, so just be on the lookout for that. Are there any questions so far? This is kind of always the awkward point because everybody's muted, so I'll just sit in silence for a second.
I want to, it's kind of breaking, the call is breaking up for me a bit, but I think it'll be okay with what was, I don't know if it was just cutting out for me, but if you put together that Zoom, I think it'd be good enough.
Is that the same for everybody?
I don't know, is it breaking up for anybody else?
No, mine's been fine.
Good here.
Mine's fine.
Eric,
Mine fine.
you sound a little scratchy, Eric, on your side. Like your voice.
That's embarrassing, Eric. It must be just you. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, well that's good that it hasn't been too bad for everybody. Yeah, any questions so far about Slack, about Zoom? We'll talk a little bit about like what education looks like online with B-School, but just those things specifically, let me know. And don't be afraid. You can raise your hand. Actually, there's a Zoom feature for being able to raise your hand. Maybe the co-hosts can be on the lookout for that, because I don't know that I can see. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I think there's a way to raise your hand. Anyway, play around with that if you feel like it, if you need to raise your hand. Okay, so attendance. This is slightly outdated. Well, not too much. Attendance is really important, and this is where things kind of get strange with an online school. So in person, it was really easy to just look at everybody who's sitting there in the classroom at a certain time and to take attendance and then to know like who's running a few minutes late. With being completely online and with us having a number of students who are just part-time, like they're still working full-time, but then are taking B-School part-time, it's not quite as clean, I guess, for us to just say like, okay, it's 9:15 a.m. we're taking attendance, because many of our students aren't, like that's not the plan, is for them to be there at that time. So really the key thing is we want you to, and it will be in your best interest, to just take advantage of every minute that you have to work on B-School curriculum. Being a part of B-School is not like being a part or like getting a membership to Pluralsight or Lynda. They're very different. Even though you will watch our curriculum as a recorded curriculum online, with Pluralsight and Lynda, the reason that those can be difficult to learn from, they are great resources, but it's really up to the person to do it the right way, if that makes sense. Like if I go on to Lynda and I want to learn about photography, because they have a lot of photography stuff, and I watch like 10 minutes of photography videos every day, I'm not going to become a great photographer, right? There's a number of things that need to happen. First of all, I need to just dedicate more time to it. And primarily, I need to do it, right? I need to get out a camera and I need to take pictures, take a ton crappy pictures, you know, and just do it all wrong for a little while until I get practice in and do it right. But bringing this back to attendance, the point is spend as much time as you can afford to spend on vSchool. If you don't currently have a full-time job that you're kind of keeping while you're here, make learning from vSchool your full-time job. And by that, I mean, get ready in the morning. Don't just like, you know, be in your pajamas the whole day. Take a shower, brush your teeth, eat breakfast, if you eat breakfast, or drink your coffee or whatever it is, your morning routine, as if you were going into an office. Find some quiet, secluded space if you possibly can, and work on the curriculum as if it were your full-time job. There's probably no better advice I could give you to help you progress than to say, treat this as if it were your full-time job. And I guess I would say you're a good employee. So as long as that makes sense. We have here like a max of 3 unexcused absences. So I'll let you know how we actually do take attendance. Everybody here will be divided into a group, and your group will be overseen by both a TA and an instructor. The TA is going to hold a daily stand-up with you, and that stand-up is supposed to mimic what it's like to be in a real work environment in the tech industry. Stand-up meetings, like that's just a term that's very commonly used for them. They're called stand-up meetings because theoretically you're supposed to stand up for them. And the reason for that is that it's a short meeting. Like you want it to be a quick meeting because nobody loves to stand for like an hour-long meeting. And so in a stand-up meeting, you talk about 3 things. You talk about what you did yesterday. So in your case, what curriculum you were able to make it through and what assignments you were able to do yesterday, what you plan on doing today as part of your like learning and curriculum and exercise work. And then if you're blocked, third thing is if you're blocked on anything. Meaning you are stuck on understanding something, or there's some technical difficulty, or it could even be like a personal issue that you're facing that's like stopping you from progressing at that time. Bringing those up can either, well, first of all, can let a TA know that that you're, you know, stalled temporarily, but also can help you get through that blockade. So that meeting will, like the time of that meeting will be directed by your TA, and you'll hear from us today about like which groups you're in and which TA you are assigned to, and then they'll work with you to get you all set up. So that was kind of a lot of stuff. I'll ask again if there's any questions. I'll give people a second to unmute and ask a question if you have it, and don't be afraid to ask. I know it's kind of quiet in here, but don't be afraid to ask.
None from me.
So how does it work for part-time or people that are still fully employed right now?
Yeah, great question. So if you're a part-time student, the TA will work with you to either figure out a better time of day to do your stand-up, or if all else fails, they will simply expect your stand-up to happen over Slack. So whenever you have time, you'll write up a message to either your group or your TA and say, this is what I did yesterday, this is what I'm planning on doing today, this is what I'm blocked on, if anything. So it'll be a little more asynchronous that way.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Okay, so a day to day, like we'll talk about day to day with vSchool. I think actually for the day to day to make sense, I want to talk about our responsive learning model, which is what you're all going to be doing. We've kind of coined our own term, the responsive learning model. So if you ever hear me call it responsive learning, this is what I'm talking about. So we, Mo mentioned this in his introduction, but we spent, and most boot camps spend a majority of their effort teaching live classes. And we did that as well from 2014 till 2019. And essentially that's how traditional education has worked for a very long time, at least modern education. And we noticed in many different ways a bunch of, I guess, faults with that way of teaching, just downsides of teaching that way. And we spent a few years trying to come up with processes to fix kind of the inherent flaws that come with a time-based education in live classes, and eventually realized that we needed to just look at the bigger picture and see how we might be able to just kind of shift that model of education entirely. In traditional education, you start day one, April 7th, for example, and historically, vSchool has been a 12-week boot camp. So 12 weeks from today would be your quote-unquote graduation day. And we spent a lot of time and effort figuring out how to pace our class on those 12 weeks so that your, I guess, learning would happen, or everybody's learning would happen in that amount of time. And that does a couple of things. First of all, our students who are maybe have prior experience or have like a better, stronger aptitude or whatever it might be, they would kind of be held back. Like they wanted to move faster, but they would be held back because we were working on some average bell curve of students' understandings. And then more commonly, students who were just kind of struggling to understand one concept, maybe like a week in or 2 weeks in, would get stuck at that point and the curriculum would move on without them. So there's, in that sense, traditional education is just like, it's like a bucket filled with a certain amount of curriculum that is being poured out over a certain amount of time. And the speed of that curriculum, you know, didn't really change. We could maybe shift like a day or two here, but it couldn't change that fast. And not everybody learns that way. You know, long story short, we just found that that was a struggle. We were adding extra weeks on to the end for certain students who had gotten caught up along the way and felt like they were drinking from a fire hose. And you know, so we would tack on weeks at the end and we'd try to get people to finish their projects. And then philosophically, it also didn't work with like what our goals were, because students would quote unquote graduate, but then they wouldn't, I mean, most of them didn't have a job by the end of class. There are a number of students who like get a job a week or whatever before class ends. That's more of the exception than the rule. And so we'd have a bunch of students who were graduated, and although we have an excellent outcomes team, the kind of the mentality was like, you're done with vSchool and now there's some extra stuff that we're going to help you with. That didn't really jive with what we want to do with the students, so with you guys. More important to us is that you are not here to have us pour a bucket of curriculum on you and for you to then like be awash in some new skill and, you know, move off on to the next phase. Instead, we've shifted our mentality to say like, you are at vSchool to get a job, and a job in technology. And so we consider you a vSchool student until you reach that goal, until you get that job in technology. That's the new endpoint. It's not a certain amount of time where we're pouring curriculum over you. It's however long it takes to get you to this goal of yours. And so that makes a lot more sense as a boot camp than to just spend a certain amount of time. when we realized that, we came up with a plan to create a different, kind of a different model for our education. And that included taking all of the same lessons and lectures that we usually teach live in class, and to record them and have all of our content be recorded. And then all kind of as a augmentation to just recorded curriculum, we have like the Zoom call running and live instructors available for help immediately. The ability to do review sessions for certain topics, and like we can vote on topics and say, yeah, there's a bunch of people who want to learn about CSS today, so we're going to have a little breakout room dedicated to learning CSS, and anyone who wants to join can join. And so once we did away kind of with the time component, we saw a number of really interesting things. We saw that students were spending a lot more time in the introductory material that we have, which normally we kind of go over in about 3 weeks. Students tend to spend more like 5 to 7 weeks in that material. And then with a really strong foundation there, they cruise through the rest of the material. And so taking the time out, taking the time component out has just been a really interesting thing for us. So we call that the responsive learning model. But I guess well, I need to practice more how hand raising works in Zoom. But I guess I should ask this: has anybody not yet used Scrimba in like as they prepared for vSchool? I'm pretty sure everybody has. I think it's part. Well, maybe Grant, you'd probably be most equipped to tell us. I think everybody here has probably done it.
If anybody's passed the pre-course project without Scrimba, then they just had prior knowledge. But yeah, everybody should be very familiar with Scrimba for sure.
Yeah, so Scrimba is fairly crucial for what we are doing. It's awesome because of the practice component. So one of the major downsides of other recorded content and mediums is that you can't practice your or in order to practice your stuff, there's a bit of a higher barrier. If you've ever done like a Lynda course or a Pluralsight course or Treehouse course or something like that, sometimes they'll have like course content for you to download and then run separately on your machine. I wouldn't be surprised if 95% of people never download that, or even if they do download it, they download it and maybe look at it once, but then just start burning through the recorded content. With Scrimba, it lowers that barrier. So the editor that you're watching, and I'm just preaching to the choir because you've all used it, but the editor that you're watching the lesson on is editable, and we can give you challenges right there in the window. A skill, like I mentioned about photography earlier, a skill is learned by doing it. And you're not going to learn how to become a good developer if you just watch us teach you development. The example I always talk about is like learning an instrument or learning any skill, really, learning a new language. I couldn't go to YouTube and watch 10,000 hours of people playing the piano, like professional pianists playing the piano. And even if they were trying to teach me, I couldn't just sit there and watch them and become a concert pianist by never touching a piano and just watching videos. And it's absolutely the same for coding. You're not going to become a proficient developer if you just watch us do it. Scrimba lowers the barrier for getting your hands on the keyboard, and we've interjected our curriculum with a bunch of exercise. So anyway, that's a giant soapbox that I got on about responsive learning, but the idea is that we've divided the curriculum into 6 modules, 7 modules if you include module 0, and I guess 8 modules if you include the project work, which is called module 7. It's confusing, but it's 0 index like an array. So you're going to be starting in module 1, and because you've done module 0 and you've passed it off with Grant. Module 1 will essentially be what you did in module 0, and there's a stopping point in each module, at the end of each module, so that we can feel confident that you've understood everything from that module before you just kind of burn through forward. So we have like a pretty consistent record of every single student, what day they started each module, what day they ended each module, and that helps us ensure that you don't just like try to burn through the curriculum, get to the end, and then say like, I can't find a job, when in fact there was a bunch of stuff in the earlier modules that you didn't really understand. So you'll be starting in module 1, and then you'll essentially work through the curriculum and with the instructors. And after module 1, you'll have a module 1 assessment. That assessment isn't something scary. It's although it is kind of like pass fail, it's not fail as in like now you got to start all the way at the beginning of module 1, because we're not a time-based class. If you don't pass module 1, the instructor will have 1 or 2 or 3 topics that you still need to go back and understand. So you'll just go back, work on those topics, and then reassess those topics for module 1. And that way and there's some leeway. You don't have to be 100% perfect expert before moving from module 1 to 2. The instructor will know like that's good enough. Here's some stuff that you might want to like practice, but that's not necessary for you to move forward. And when you pass that assessment, you'll move to module 2, and you'll have like another stopping point at the end of module 2. There's some of them have little midpoint assessments to ensure that you're not going too long without any contact from an instructor or TA. But that's how responsive learning works, and the whole philosophy behind why we kind of switched to that model. So I mentioned at the beginning of the call that we were poised to work well with this sort of online group, and that's the reason why. Like essentially taking the time component out. The only way to do that is to record our content so that you can asynchronously or like outside of time consume the content and then still have the benefits of kind of a live in-person interaction with the instructors. Any questions so far? That's a lot of information. Okay, don't be afraid to, you can unmute and interrupt me if you need to. We got a thumbs up there, that was awesome. Okay, so your day-to-day, so that was all leading to day-to-day. We like to work with spaced repetition and deliberate practice. Like I mentioned, we tried not to go too many lectures without some kind of practice. And the lectures themselves, most of the lectures themselves have some kind of practice in the middle. Whenever you hear somebody say, one of the instructors in the recording say, pause here and try this thing, absolutely pause there and try that thing. It can be really tempting to just like fast forward and I guess like skip ahead to the solution. I instructed all the instructors when they're recording to leave 7 seconds of awkward silence right there, because it can be really awkward to just listen, especially if you're at 1x speed, but to listen first through 7 seconds of silence. It gives you enough time to like feel guilty for not pausing and then hitting pause and actually trying out the thing. So just make sure you do that. Don't skip ahead. You're only hurting yourself if you do. Absolutely try it. If you get stuck, turn to Google, turn to the TAs, like try to do it. Don't just say like, well, I'm a little bit stuck, I'll just watch the solution. Really, like the effort you put in is going to be super crucial in your ability to understand it. We will start the student Zoom call at 9 a.m. or by 9 a.m. every day. And I'm working right now, we're kind of restructuring our Zoom accounts. So I'm working to get a kind of a good process down for that. I'm figuring out if it's going to just be the same URL or if I'll have like an invite that's sent out every single day, like a scheduled call. So for now, just be watching the Dev Students channel in Slack, which I'll make sure everyone is added to. Another thing with the day-to-day, like it says here, is there's always more work to do. Obviously, if you're burning out, then take a break. Like, don't be afraid to stop. But don't like finish one little piece of curriculum or one assignment and just be like, well, I did the bare minimum, that's good enough. it's fine if you feel like maybe you don't fully understand that thing, to spend some extra time on it. There's always more that you can do on every single assignment. If you want help knowing what to do next, the instructors will be more than happy to help you know, like give you more work, basically. We focus heavily on both soft and hard skills. The stuff that we have in Scrimba is specific for front-end development and is working on your hard skills with learning development. But Lainey is going to be working closely with every single one of you on the soft skills. I think we're going to talk a little bit about that. Actually, we don't a whole lot. Lainey, are you still on the call?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to take a second and just talk about like your part with working in career prep and outcomes?
Yeah, absolutely. So we will work together on those soft skills. So that's number one, practice interviewing, going over the resume and making sure you're presenting well. Also, just sometimes when you're doing coding challenges or anything in person, it's easy to freeze up. So we practice those often. So what Career and Outcomes does, and by the way, we also have two other members on my team, Tirza Solomon, she's another career mentor, and Danielle Sanslow. She's our technical resume writing specialist and really all technical writing. She comes from an English background. So we work with you to develop kind of those other skills outside of just coding. So that includes even writing, how do I present this and make my resume really, really exciting to get me land that interview. And then when I'm in the interview, how am I supposed to behave? How should I interact? So we teach you obviously fundamentals of just general professionalism, as well as kind of how to interview and how to interview well, what to ask, what not to ask, what's appropriate, and also just practicing kind of that discussion to talk about yourself, which gets really uncomfortable sometimes. Lots of people, even myself, I don't really like to talk a lot about myself. It's hard, you have to get used to it. So we usually go over that a few times. And that's where our career workshops, we are live. So I do the live workshops to get some of that humanistic interaction, as well as the curriculum is baked into also your modules. So we'll go through them at your pace as well. And then we just have topics similar to what we're doing in the day-to-day coding classroom. So that's kind of how we'll help you guys get through all of those aspects and also help you reassess if you had an interview, what went well, what you like, what didn't you like, did anything go extremely well where you're like, I want to do that again, or were there questions that got you stumped? And we'll also practice going over some of those items where you don't know, and it's okay if you don't know. So we'll practice all those items, when we go through each of the workshops, and it's more Q&A based as well. So I do a training typically from 2 to 4 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You guys will most likely be in a lot of the Tuesday workshops for the beginning, because that's usually the modules 1 through 3 kind of introductory topics. And then we'll go over some of the additional items. So if anybody has questions, let me know. We'll be going through this all again this afternoon at 2 o'clock. And I'll just hop in the general chat, and it's pretty casual, and we want to keep it conversational, but we'll go over kind of those items.
Awesome, thanks, Lainey. So Lainey's gonna be your best friend. First of all, because she's everybody's best friend, and also because she's gonna be the one that really like propels you from the education to the career, which is, remember that's the end of your V-School time. I mean, everybody has lifelong support, and we love hearing from our alumni, and we have like a coding questions thing happen with our alumni, but we try not to consider you graduated until you've like reached that goal. So I mentioned this one already, to treat this as your full-time job. That's just going to be a great, obviously if you have a full-time job, then treat it like your part-time job. But for example, if this were your full-time job, would you show up in your pajamas? Would you treat this, or would you just leave early and show up late every single day? Would you spend like 1 or 2 hours, kind of doing the curriculum or kind of doing the work? Hopefully no, right? At least that's probably not going to fly super well if you're trying to get a job. So keep that, if you can keep that mentality and just think of this as your full-time job, get rid of those distractions however you can. It's really going to make a huge difference in your education, I promise you that. we've talked about this a bit, so I'm mostly going to skip these. Again, we try to do spaced repetition and deliberate practice, so getting as much practice with your hands on the keyboard as possible. Don't be afraid to try other things too, like go beyond what we ask you to do. If you're curious at all, do that. We'll talk about that when we talk about vSchool's values in just a second. And I kind of jumped ahead and talked a little bit about how you demonstrate your skills. We'll have both a series of projects that you work on. Well, kind of like an exercise is like a small version of a project, or project's like a big version of some kind of homework or work. By the end of the class, though, you will have a personal portfolio. You'll have a individual full stack project. You'll have a React project. And you'll have a group full stack project that you'll work on. So you'll have a number of things that you can put on your portfolio and your resume that you'll have worked on. I haven't done this in a second, but I started building a site that would showcase all of our alumni's projects. They're fascinating, and they're really interesting to see because especially for new students, you'll see what students who are like 6 weeks in are doing. And it's just incredible. It's hard to believe. You'll say like, I'll never get there in 6 weeks. And then, 6 or 8 weeks later, you'll be there. So it's interesting. And in the meantime, you'll be building your GitHub up. You'll, make use of Google and Stack Overflow. You'll get good at helping yourself kind of answer some questions. And then, if you so desire, Lainey will help you with like your LinkedIn, and then you can always work on social media, your social media presences with YouTube and Twitter, Medium. Sometimes students will write, Medium blogs and stuff like that. Okay, before we jump into vSchool's values, are there any questions?
No, Bob, I have to hop off for the intern meeting, but
Okay.
I will just want to thank everybody for being here. I'm so excited to work with you more, and I can't emphasize enough, like we said, treat this like your job. Get up, get ready every morning, especially working from home, and then I'll see you guys at 2 o'clock this afternoon, and I'm really excited to get to know each and every one of you, and thanks, Bob, for presenting all this, and I'll talk to you guys this afternoon, but I'm really excited.
Thanks, Lainey.
All right, I'll see you later.
See ya. Let's actually take like a 5-minute break, and at 10:05 we'll come back. I just need to grab some water because my mouth is getting dry from doing all this talking. So this next section, we're going to talk about vSchool's values. I want it to be a little bit more of a discussion, and so we'll get started at 10:05. So I guess that's 4-minute break. All right, can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Anyone think of any questions that you had in the break? Is everyone feeling good? Concerns? All right.
I'll get here, Bob.
Sweet. Okay, so I have found that it's helpful to spend a little bit of time talking about vSchool's values. And these are basically company values, but they directly correlate to, I guess, ways in which your education will be best benefited. And so the reason I found this to be helpful is because we can talk about some scenarios and how we might best, I guess, approach those scenarios that you'll likely end up or find yourself facing as you are working through our curriculum. So the first one that we like to talk about is bigger than us. And the kind of the main point here is regarding respect and humility, optimism, accountability, some of those, I guess, qualities that help us remember that together we basically create a bigger unit than each of us individually. I guess that's called synergy, but I just like that word's kind of taboo now. Everybody hates the word synergy. So the point is it's important to respect one another. It's important to I guess remain humble and just remember that accountability is kind of the one I want to talk about. We are trying to keep ourselves accountable to you guys. And we try to do that through a number of ways. One is we've got a Friday forum, like a class town hall with the CEO and the staff. And that's a time for everything to be transparent, for us to essentially take feedback from you so that we can spend the next weekend and week implementing new changes, or helping individual students as necessary. Similarly, we also expect that you're accountable to us. And that's why we have, the other method is a survey. We've got a survey that you'll be reminded in Slack to take that basically asks for feedback. And then we also expect you to be accountable to us. And that happens through your daily stand-ups where we get your progress. It happens in your one-on-one time with instructors, whether it's just like scheduled one-on-one time or module assessments, your interactions with the TAs, all of those methods in which we essentially keep track of your progress, and that helps us know that you're progressing. You're not like in trouble if you had a bit of a slacker week or whatnot, but the point is we want you to feel open and honest to tell us when you feel like maybe things aren't going the right way, whether that's our fault or your fault, or nobody's fault. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about with accountability. We try to be as transparent as we can, and we're not a prideful group. Like we love getting feedback. I couldn't tell you, Eric would probably back me up on this, but we couldn't tell you how many times the curriculum has shifted because of student feedback. Even without student feedback, the curriculum is changing all the time because the field is changing all the time. And so, there's been major changes that we've implemented because of like one comment that somebody said, and we researched it and made sure that it was the right thing to do, and then we did it. So the next kind of value that we hold is to never learn alone. And this can be particularly challenging in an online environment like this, but our attempts, like what we're trying to do, is create an environment, create a medium for people to be connected. And so that's where our day-long Zoom call is that's running is going to kind of hopefully be helpful. But then Slack is also a great way to reach out, like we talked about when we talked about communication. Learning in a group by definition means that you're gonna have to find a way to be more vulnerable. Being vulnerable is difficult when you feel like everybody else gets it and you don't. But I promise you that's rarely the case. It's much more common that if you have a question, many other people have that same question. So being able to collaborate with each other and being willing to be vulnerable are two important skills that you're going to have to learn, especially when you're likely quarantined in your small little house and are afraid to I guess reach outside those walls. So yeah, I don't know. Eric, do you have any thoughts about either of these, or Grant, or any of the instructors? Nate had to jump off, so it's Grant and Eric right now.
Yeah, when I was a student, I always asked the questions, and I was like, I made effort to be super annoying to ask the questions. And most of the time, I would say like 95% of the times I would ask a question, somebody else in the class would look at me and like give me a thumbs up, or like, say, thanks, it's the same question for me as well. So just like never be afraid to ask the question. And like I've told pretty much everybody that I've worked with, if you feel like you're spending more than 30 minutes on a problem, reach out to an instructor and ask for help. And that's why we're here.
Yeah, and I've liked the experience on Zoom because we can just be hanging out in a room, maybe 4 or 5 of us, and somebody has a question and shares their screen, and then anybody that's interested in it can watch, and if you're not, you can like leave the room or whatever, or just hang out working on your own stuff. But I think it just gives us a kind of a good opportunity to work together in that way, sharing screens.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, so the next value is we like to call get on base. It's kind of a baseball reference. So the point is, you don't always have to be trying to hit a home run from the beginning. It's important that you develop some skills of grit and self-reliance so that you can make incremental progress. And it's going to be the small incremental things that will get you to your ultimate goal. Grit and self-reliance is a big one that I love to talk about. So I want to kind of pose a scenario and then ask people to give me a kind of a bad approach to that scenario. Like, what are some bad, I guess, responses to that scenario you could have, and then some good approaches. So we're talking about grit and self-reliance. Let's say that you've been working on a problem and you get stuck and you just can't make progress. Like you can't seem to make any kind of, I guess, meaningful progress. Like you're banging your head against the wall trying to understand something. What is a bad approach to that scenario? I'll give you guys a second to think about it. Unmute yourself and just kind of pop in if you have thoughts.
Probably reach out like right away without doing any other kind of Googling or Stack Overflowing.
Sure. Yeah. Let's say you have a question and the first thing you do is just say, like, I don't get this. It's kind of a gray area. There's a line to be walked, I guess, between there, because like Grant said, we don't want you to be banging your head against a wall, but at the same time, we are going to hold you accountable to do some kind of work on your own. That's not because we don't want to talk to you, I promise. It's because when you've finished V-School and you're at your first job, like, you're not going to just be able to rely on us to answer every little question that first comes your way. So yes, like turn to Google, turn to your classmates, turn to Stack Overflow, try to do some research. On the other side of that coin, like Grant said, don't spend more than 30 or 40 minutes banging your head against the wall. If you're not understanding a single thing you're seeing on Google, if you have no idea what terms to search for, if Stack Overflow is making no sense at all, which I promise that's probably what it's going to be like for the first few months, then don't spend more than 30 or 40 minutes doing that, because that can be frustrating and it can be counterproductive to your education. Reach out, unmute yourself in the non-quiet room in the Zoom call, or message somebody on Slack, message the dev students channel or your module channel, or whatever, and ask the question. Get help. I guess I kind of stole the show there. What's another good approach? So you can don't just bang your head against the wall, but also don't not even try to do anything. What's another good thing that you could do if say you're stuck on a problem?
When I'm stuck on a problem, I usually delete code until it works again. Or if it's a different thing, I usually make sure I research enough to understand how to ask the question to an instructor in a technical way instead of a very broad way of I'm just not getting this.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll kind of issue a little bit of a warning there. You are probably not doing it this way, but we've seen students that are like 2 days into a project and then decide that they're just going to delete everything and start over because they're stuck.
Oh no, never.
Yeah, don't be that intense with deleting your code. But yeah, if you broke something, doing a Command Z to a point at which it's working, like that's a great way to like understand things better. Another one that I would say is to take a break. If you're stuck on a problem and you're feeling frustrated, first, like obviously you'll turn to Google, you turn to Stack Overflow, but just like take a walk around your house, go eat something or get a cold drink of water or take a shower, like do something to just like reset, and then come back to the problem. Many times it is not at all uncommon to come back and like something will just kind of click and make sense. Has anybody heard the term rubber ducking? The idea of rubber ducking is you actually have a physical rubber duck. We should send this in like an intro packet to everybody. Since we're online, we should send this out. But like an actual rubber duck that you stick on your shelf. The point is you try to explain the problem you're having to them, like what it is that you're stuck on. And oftentimes, and it's a rubber duck, it's not going to respond to you. The point is, oftentimes the process of explaining the problem helps you find the solution. So talk to, if there's like a spouse or roommate or somebody that you can just explain the problem. Doesn't matter if they have no idea what you're talking about. If you just want to do it to like a stuffed animal, it doesn't matter. That can be a helpful way to overcome those problems. So now that we've talked about get on base and like making incremental progress and kind of just looking towards the next step to kind of build the education you need, almost like an exact opposite of that, but also really important, is what we like to call die on Mars. The idea of die on Mars comes from Elon Musk. He has said in an interview that he plans to die on Mars. And that's a super, super lofty goal, right? And so this is where the ideas of like courage, endurance, vision, creativity come into play. I like to think of this as just remembering that your ultimate goal is to change careers, and that's a big goal, especially into a goal that's highly technical. What is really nice about kind of the computer science field is that most companies don't care where you got your education. There are so many super talented self-taught programmers out there that companies are doing away with their requirements for like undergrad and graduate degrees in computer science, and instead want to see your work, and they want to see that you can learn that you can be like a normal human being to interact with, and like that you could interface with a customer if needed, and that you have actually like spent time and that you love doing it. So remember your ultimate goal, and that hopefully can help you remember, I guess, that treating this as your full-time job is going to be the only way to get to that goal. So let's pose this scenario. I'm kind of winging this one because my normal scenario has more to do with the in-person class experience. But let's imagine that it's 2 p.m. And you maybe like just finished some piece of curriculum. You know, maybe you got started at like 11 a.m. So you've been going for a few hours. What would be, I guess, a bad approach to this scenario? You've only had a chance to work for 3 hours that day, but maybe, you know, the lawn needs to be mowed or something. I don't know. What's a bad approach?
Giving up and just, yeah, kind of only doing that for the day.
I'd say having started at 11.
Yeah, having started at 11 in the first place.
Yeah.
Not taking any breaks to make up for lost time.
Awesome. Yeah, these are all great. So I'll be totally honest, like when we first started sheltering in place here, my first 2 days, I was like, man, I'm gonna get so many house projects done. Like I'm still on the clock. Like I'm still doing, I have a lot of work to do for V-School. And I mean, we had an earthquake too. So in Utah, it was like, I had this earthquake and I was like, man, I got to get those earthquake straps attached to my water heater that I installed last year. So like I spent 2 hours doing that. And then I ended up like doing another house project and another house project and another house project. And I was like, this is awesome. I'm being so productive. But then I was like super far behind in my work. So I know firsthand that it can be super easy to get distracted by being at home, especially with me having a 2.5-year-old and a 2-week-old. So so things are kind of crazy. But yeah, just like saying, it's good enough. Like I need to mow the lawn. It absolutely has to be done today. It's like, well, I mean, does it? Can it wait till later? You know, treat this like your full-time job. What's maybe a better approach? You started at 11. It's 2 o'clock. You're like feeling like you accomplished, I guess, even though you've only been at it for a couple hours. What's a better approach at that time?
Maybe take a break, get some fresh air, and then hit it again.
Yeah, kind of trying to write out a plan, something that you can like write out a small goal to attain after mowing the lawn. So that way you're not just working just the 3 hours.
Yeah, that's awesome. The nice thing about responsive learning is there is some flexibility. If you need to mow the lawn at 2 p.m., that's fine. Go mow the lawn. Just like find a way, make a plan, like you said, to make up that time. That's great. Awesome. Are there any other thoughts like on any of these values so far? We're closing in on the end here, I promise, and it's been a long meeting. All right. Turn the stone is an important one. I mentioned this initially, but the idea of turn the stone is to be curious and to like test things out, and then to be patient when they're not working. I'd be interested to know how many of you are self-proclaimed perfectionists.
Me, big time.
Yep. Couple of head nods, a big time in there. Okay. One thing I'm in many aspects of my life, I tend to be a perfectionist, and I guess I'll go off on a little tangent here. Has anyone heard of the study they did with children? And this had more to do with self-reliance, I think, where there was a group of kids. There's two groups of kids. They gave both groups a puzzle to be solved, And at the end of solving that puzzle, they told each of the kids in group, let's say group A, that they must be really smart in order to have solved that puzzle. And they gave, this is from, I think, one of Malcolm Gladwell's books, so maybe a bunch of you heard this example. And then they, in the other group, let's say group B, they were told that they worked very hard to solve that puzzle. And like they lauded their hard work instead of their inherent intelligence. And then when given the opportunity to solve a more difficult challenge, they found a strong correlation that the groups of, or the group of people, kids who were told that they were inherently smart were less likely to want to even attempt a harder challenge, because if they couldn't solve it, it would be, I guess, breaking that understanding of them as an intelligent person. Whereas the group B kids who were told that they worked hard to solve that challenge were more likely to attempt the harder challenge, because that was their I guess mindset. This is from Mindset. That's what it is. Read Mindset if you haven't. It talks about this. But they essentially have a growth mindset, and they believe that they can work hard to accomplish something, and not just that their intelligence would be in question if they weren't able to solve a new challenge. That comes back to perfectionism, because I have had in the past a tendency to not even want to try something that seemed really difficult in fear of not being able to do it and having that like essentially hurt my ego. I've since had to learn that it's fine to not be perfect at things, and that learning to code means learning to be okay with making lots of mistakes and doing things the wrong way, quote unquote, the wrong way. And so that's where curiosity comes into play. If you're in the middle of a Scrimba lesson and we ask you, like, attempt this challenge, like I've said, don't just skip through it, first of all. Second of all, really try that challenge. Don't just try it a little bit and then fear that you're going to get it wrong, so then like watch the solution. Actually try it. Be okay with screwing it up. It's super easy to just undo your changes and try again. And just to like be, you know, I guess be curious. If you completed the challenge, if you complete that little challenge, and then you say like, I wonder what would happen if I did this. What if I added this property in CSS? I learned something 3 lessons ago. I wonder if I can apply that here. That's what turn the stone means. Just be curious, try those things out. You being curious means more time with your hands on the keyboard testing things out. And it also means more like, I guess, cognitive understanding. Like it will really sink in deeper if you're curious about something, as opposed to on the opposite side of that spectrum, like having Scrimba running in the background while you're watching, you know, Netflix or something. So that's kind of that's like a big soapbox that I'll get on. But being curious and trying not to be a perfectionist, at least in this one thing, being okay with making mistakes, is all going to be really helpful for your learning. I don't know, Eric or Grant, this might be a good time if you have any thoughts on any of that. Feel free to chime in.
I think you nailed it.
Okay. Appreciate it. I'm perfect in that thing, right? Okay. Well, this that's basically the end of orientation. Well, the first thing I want to do is ask for any questions. This doesn't have to be about our values or our responsive learning. It can be about anything at all. Any questions at all regarding like your time at B School?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Just about your recent point. We were talking about Scrimba, and then sorry for mentioned that there will be answers given after, because in module 0, for the most part, there were no answers, so I couldn't tell if I was really doing it correctly. I like having that immediate feedback. Does that make sense?
It does. It might just be me, but your microphone sounds like it might be across the room. I'm having.
Maybe. I also have this bird happening in the background, which isn't helping. Can you hear me a little better?
Not particularly. If
Maybe
just
I'll
like
just,
a little.
maybe I'll just type it out.
Okay. Really quick, if you click the little arrow next to the like microphone mute button, if you click the arrow, just curious if it's possible that you might be connected to like a set of headphones that's across the room or a speaker or something.
No, it's my laptop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, when you're close like that, it's a little easier. Maybe just get a little closer and then ask your question again.
Okay. Can you hear me a little better? Maybe.
Kind of. Just go ahead.
It's a, sorry, my bird's being talkative. I'll just type it out.
Okay, I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
it's not, no. It's something I can figure out later. So it's not a big deal. No worries.
Okay. Sorry. Anybody else with any questions at all?
Yes, Bob. Can you give us an idea about the daily routines? I mean, I saw the slide, but like, how can we plan the day? So, for example, do we have like a session in the morning where the whole group will be looking or learning something? You said there is a stand-up every day with our instructor, etc. So, can you just sketch how the day will be arranged, if you don't mind?
Yeah. Let me do this. Can everyone see this screen with the Google Sheets on it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So there won't necessarily, like, the call will start at 9 a.m. The Zoom call, and we would love everybody to just join that. We're trying to, this is all kind of new because things are changing kind of quick in the world. But we want the Zoom call to be running, and we think that it's most helpful if students join that Zoom call, stay on the Zoom call, turn on your cameras. That can be like kind of scary, but it helps you like get ready for the day beforehand, and you know, turning on your cameras shows that you're, I guess it just holds you a little bit more accountable. And then when we were having class in person, we had 2 review sessions during a day. And those review sessions would include whatever topic people felt like they wanted to learn about or like cover that day. Because everybody's at a different point in the curriculum at any given time, we won't have a lesson that's the only way that you'll be learning something. Because it may only apply to like 1 or 2 people that are exactly at that point in the curriculum. We are going to try to reinstitute since we're online now, to reinstitute our like 2 a day review sessions. And then Eric, I don't know if you can chime in, but Eric has been holding code challenges each day too, and going over solutions to those challenges. So like a code challenge would be given out in the morning, and then the solution to that code challenge would be covered sometime like in the afternoon. I don't know, Eric, I don't think we've been doing that since we moved online, but it sounds like something that, it seems like something that would be helpful to continue.
Yeah, we'll have like lectures / like setup stuff for the first couple of weeks, starting at 10 a.m. every morning. So join the call at 9. Expect something to be happening at 10, and then yeah, I'll assign a code challenge that we'll go over it too, and then I don't know, depending on how calls work out, maybe have that happen in the other room eventually, or in the other call.
Yeah, awesome. Great. And then for the rest of the kind of day-to-day work, this spreadsheet is going to end up being like one of your go-tos. It's the curriculum. So you see here it says module 1. This is the curriculum for module 1, and it will basically direct like what you need to work on next. Everything that's has like a green highlight is an assignment that you'll stop at that point in the curriculum, shift over to, say, Visual Studio Code, your editor on your computer, and do that problem on your own computer in your own environment. Everything that's in white is mostly like a Scrimba or a YouTube lesson for you to watch. Then over here on the right are assisting articles. So like this is the box model review, but then this is a written article on the same topic in case you would like, both mediums to both read it and to like watch a Scrimba course on it. These points, let me talk about these story points for a second. So here in column C, we have what's called story points. And anybody who's maybe worked in a project management environment before may have heard of story points. It's a part of Agile Scrum, which is just a methodology. That's the name of the methodology for like how to manage a project, like a tech project. The idea of story points is like a relative unit of difficulty. So for example, we gave this Scrimba lesson, and I would say probably every or almost every Scrimba lesson where you just have to watch it, those are worth a half story point, which means relatively speaking, it's a pretty easy and not very time-consuming task for you to do. And then assignments have been given, some number of story points that represent a more difficult amount of work. CSS flags, for example, is 4 story points, and that's because it's a slightly longer, maybe harder, more challenging assignment for you to do, especially in comparison to just sitting and watching like a lecture. Over on the left, it's just the accumulation, like the number that is the accumulation of all the story points. So this progress is sort of a mile marker for us to know where you are in the curriculum at any given point. So you could say to us, I'm in module 1, story point 17.5, and we would be able to look that up and know that you're, working on computer setup or Node.js, if you're 18.5, or if you're at 25, you're watching this lecture. So that's essentially what you will do in your stand-up. At your daily stand-up is you'll say, I was able to complete this number of story points yesterday, and today I'm going to try and complete this number of story points, like whatever this adds to, 11 story points, or whatever, which would put me at 24, like story point 24 in module 1. And then outside of like maybe a review session or a code review or something that's happening on Zoom live, your time will just be spent working through the prepared curriculum. Is that kind of what you're looking for, Nafez? Is that?
Let me ask 2 more questions. The first one, so how would that, do you have like an estimated time to finish a module? I know that everyone will work according to his understanding and efforts, but normally you'll have like a tentative or sketchy timeline, so people know whether they're going too slow or too fast, in a sense.
I can.
Say that again, Eric.
Oh, I forgot you had another question, but I can answer that first.
The other question is just how can we, once we finish an assignment, do we review that, with the full class or in the small group or in the quiet group? If you can just tell me how can you do the assessment? Thank you.
Yeah, Eric, if you want to take those.
Yeah, so each module, so before we'd work through the same, maybe a little less classwork in 3 months, but if you break that up, each module if you were shooting for that goal to wrap up the coursework in 3 months, each module would take you 2 weeks. And that means I think modules have around like 70 or 80 points. So depending on how many days you're putting into it, maybe 7 or 8 points on average a day. But you'll kind of learn many points you can get, and then it's good to make stretch goals. So I've been doing 6 points on average a day, but I want to be able to make this 2-week goal. So I need to start getting 10 points done or whatever. As far as getting the assignments done, it's any assignments that you would like to show an instructor to. An instructor or a TA would like to look over it and give feedback. There are each like mid-module assessment and module assessment, a big focus will be looking at your code and giving feedback there. And I would like if every assignment you talk to somebody about it. So whether that's small groups of people working on the same assignments, or us showing stuff off, maybe at like in the morning or something, show off what you did yesterday. I'd like to implement that stuff.
Yeah, and Slack could also be a place to show off some of those assignments. If you push your stuff up to GitHub, which we'll show you how to do. If you push your stuff up to GitHub, you can send out a Slack message with a link to that GitHub, and people are always able to like go look through it. You could also upload it to like CodePen or Code Sandbox if it has a visual component that might be a little bit easier. If you're looking for feedback, that can be a way to do it. Just say like, hey, I did this. Like, did anyone do it differently? But yeah, like Eric said, the module assessments at the end of each module, we'll also be looking at some of those assignments and be giving feedback at that time too. Any other questions? Feel free. Eric, oh yeah, go ahead.
What kind of acceptable cadence do you see for kind of part-time people, or where this is, sort of a bit harder to kind of gauge that cadence?
I think the most important thing is that you're able to do something every day. If some days that means like 15 or 30 minutes, then not letting too much time lapse is more important than having the ability to do like 4 or 6 hours, tacked on top of your full-time work. So the cadence is difficult because it will totally depend on how much time you are able to dedicate to it each day. Well, yeah, that's kind of the answer I have to settle with. But getting as much, like, you will find an amount of time that will both like not overload your brain, but also not let you become out of practice. At which point you'll, like Eric mentioned, you'll probably settle on some certain number of story points that you're able to accomplish each day. That may be watching like 4 lessons and doing 1 exercise, or you may, be cruising till 2 in the morning because you're super engaged and loving it. So yeah, it will depend.
Sounds good.
I know people, I hate when people give me the it depends answer, because it's not an answer, it's a non-answer, but kind of has to be that way. Eric, do you have any final words of wisdom, words of advice, like your main, I guess, points for success?
Yeah, especially for part-time people, but for everybody, use those story points to kind of, it's like CSS flags. If it's 4 story points, and if you've already spent a whole day on it, it's probably time. You want to reach out to somebody to get through that stuff. So Bob mentioned earlier, if you're struggling on any one point for like a half hour, definitely get help. But even like with things where you're like tinkering and went around and it seems like you're kind of making progress, but it's kind of taking you a long time. It's okay to get, like a little bit of instruction to get you pointed in the right direction. So yeah, we'll try and do our part in reaching out to you to make sure everything's going smoothly, but we ask that you do the same so that there's a lot of communication since we can't hang out in person. We just hit each other up on Slack and stuff. But yeah, other than that, I think most things have been covered.
Awesome. And I would say there are a few assignments that you could go deep down a rabbit hole if you wanted. CSS flags, for example, I think there's like 10 or 12 different country flags that we give you as increasing levels of difficulty to make. You do not have to do every single one of them. Like they're not intended to be like you have to get through every one of these flags before you can move on. If you're absolutely loving it or you're finding it to be like a super helpful thing, then feel free to come back to it when you're like feeling bored or whatever. But don't try to do every single flag in the list. The same goes with there's some exercises that are called like Olympics exercises where they have like a qualifying round, a bronze medal, silver medal, gold medal. You don't have to do every single one of them through the gold medal level. Those are meant to be additional challenges.
You can consider bronze as complete in those assignments.
Yeah. And we'll try to update those if they haven't already, to say like, here's a stopping point. This is the absolute requirement, but like do these at your own risk, I guess. And as they get harder and harder. So yeah, don't go down too deep of a rabbit hole. Our daily stand-ups are intended to weed out or to like bring to the foreground people who maybe have gotten stuck in one of those and are spending too much time like trying to complete it to perfection. So we'll try to like give you some advice about just moving forward if we feel that's necessary. So if you have any more questions, just reach out on Slack. You're all in the student onboarding channel. I'm gonna now move you into your module 1 channel if you're not already there. We will be working on getting you into groups, and I'll be posting the link to this curriculum right after this call, actually. And then Eric will probably be taking up some next steps with you. So we'll be, like I said, we'll be putting into groups. Those groups will determine what time you're meeting, or depending on what group you're in, will determine what time you're meeting and who your TA is. Eric, any other next steps things? Like do you do computer setup with people, or is that, it looks like that's part of the curriculum, so.
It's part of the curriculum, but there's potentially roadblocks. So that'll be the first thing, is to make sure that everybody's through that. So okay. We'll be hosting a Zoom call in the main lobby where I'll always hang out and people will usually be hanging out. We'll do that. If it gets too chattery in the main lobby, I think Bob talked about this, but you can go to breakout room 1 to start working through the curriculum.
I also mentioned, and like I apologize as far as transparency goes, like I apologize for any confusion we might run up against. This is the first cohort we're starting as a fully like on Zoom online cohort. So you're a little bit of guinea pigs for us. We've been running it with students for the last few weeks, but a few things are still changing with Zooms. So just be willing to roll with the punches. If we throw a new URL at you at some point, or like invite you to a scheduled call, it's just be patient with us and we'll get those kinks worked out. Awesome.
So
thanks
Bob,
everyone.
Bob, just one last question. So communication will go through the this group, I mean this channel, or Or through which channel? I mean, you're gonna send messages through what channel?
Slack for messaging, like written message, Slack is the best place to do that. And that will happen either in the dev students channel. Here, let me just share my screen. Okay, so this is the dev students channel. This is everybody who's a current student at vSchool. If you have some message that's pertinent to everybody that's a current student in vSchool, then this is a good place to do it. There's also a module channel for every one of our modules. And as you graduate from one module to the next, you'll be put into the next one in Slack. So if you have a question regarding some, say, curriculum from module 1, posting something in the module 1 channel will be kind of your best bet. Right now, there's a student onboarding channel, which is where I sent my message this morning. I may, like, I'll post, I might post like the Zoom link here or something like that, but dev students is where the Zoom link for the day will be posted. So I guess just be checking them. One thing with Slack is you can click this little star to favorite that channel and it will pop up into your starred list. So you can just see them all in one place. You can see I have like 1 million channels here I need to clean up, but this little, you can star them if you have a bunch of channels that are getting confusing. So Slack is the best place for written messages. We're not yet great at using like Zoom's chat feature. If you ask a question in Zoom's chat, you likely won't get an answer for as quickly as you would if you asked it in Slack. And then the Zoom call that I'm currently on is not the Zoom call that you'll be joining. That link will be in the dev students channel. We'll post that there. So basically, be checking Slack and join the other Zoom call.
I have a question. I don't think I'm in the dev student. I don't see that on my Slack.
You're right. Now you are. Actually, is anybody else not in? It's very possible that nobody's in dev students now that I think about it. So I'll just double check that now and make sure everybody's in there. Oh no, some of you are. Yeah, I'll make sure everybody's in there. Okay. Thanks everyone. This is kind of a lengthier orientation, but I'm grateful everyone's here. We're super excited to have you. Honestly, like we feel like this is a next phase for vSchool, and we're excited to be having online stuff. So it's a great opportunity. Reach out again if you have any questions. And we'll see you in that other Zoom call shortly.